Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Gospel and the Grind podcast. We exist to show Christians and inspire Christians what the Christian worldview looks like in the workplace. We want to inspire people to use work for the furthering of the kingdom of God. I'm here with Gregor. Could you introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah, hi, I'm Gregor, and I'm speaking to you from Switzerland. My family and I, we are Reformed Baptists, and we live in Rien, that's close to Basel, in the northern part of Switzerland. We are Germans, and we live here since 2023. And yeah, I am an entrepreneur, you could say. We founded a little family business that I am running at this point, and it sells beef tallow online. It's called Swiss-based. That that's a funny name, I guess, and then it means we are based in Switzerland, which we are, and yeah, and then obviously based
Yeah.
is another street word, I would guess, for cool or what have you, right? And then yeah, we do formulas and balms for your skin, and as of late, we did an eye cream, and we sell it in these little 60 ml jars mostly. Yeah, it's all produced here. It's all yeah, made by hand, and we ship it here from Switzerland. So yeah, we do that via Shopify. We have an online store, www.swissbased.shop, and yeah, it's going good. And I hope the business does serve the Lord and does serve everybody who is involved at this point. Yeah.
Awesome. I realized I didn't even introduce myself. I'm not well known enough for people just to pop on here. And I'm with Anglin. I'm with P101. And yeah, I want to get into as well. Could you tell me real quick, maybe a summary of kind of your testimony and how how you got to where you are now?
Yeah, so I grew up in a secular family. I am 35 years old now, and the Lord called me only at 30. Well, praise Him for that. Um, so my journey was basically I was a musician back in the days, and I did a lot of DJing and music production, and I kind of had a studio and a publishing thing. And so I was heavily into music, but on the side, I was always what you can call a truth seeker, basically. So I dug into many topics over the years, let's say law and economics, and I've many fields of interest basically for me. And even in the end, so yeah, long story short, the Corona time came, so I had a lot of time to think about life and think about things and less work at that time. And that was kind of the time where I kind of came into the spiritual kind of journey a little bit as well. And during that time, I yeah, met the first Christians in my life. Basically, a few people that were also not very happy with the circumstances during the Corona years, and I kind of went to some protests, some speeches, and stuff like that. So I came across real Christians basically at that time, and I got gifted some books. And I started listening to some stuff, and yeah, piece by piece, there was well, in the end, it turned out to be an American that kind of led me to Christ. A guy that was an economics guy. He was going around in Germany with his wife, and at that time, I was at an event. He kind of asked me to translate simultaneously for him, and so I was kind of on the road with him a little bit. And yeah, I would say I came to Christ in a business hotel next to a city named Fulda. And it was like a summer day. We were in the beer garden, all German style, having our schnitzel and having our beer. And we were talking about Christendom, and especially Christendom in the United States, and, Billy Graham and all these things. And up to that point, I never knew there were Christians like who actively lived out their faith in some sort of spiritual way. And I always thought the truth was I knew truth was objective basically, but I thought it was more to find in the Far Eastern kind of teaching.
Mm.
So yeah, he kind of explained me a lot of things about the gospel and about churches in America. And yeah, how very few people actually find the way, the path
Yeah.
to salvation.
And where did you
So
grow
yeah,
up? Where was it that
I
you
grew
grew up?
up in south of Germany. I'm from Freiburg in the southwest of Germany.
Mm. And so you would
Yeah.
say in that period growing up, you didn't really have any interactions with Christians who were actually living their life. It was
Well, I was part of the state church basically, and the Protestant state church is not really one per se. I was, pedo baptized as a baby basically, and I you do a thing called confirmation when I was like 15, but it's like, yeah, it was a woman preacher, and she kind of taught some things that didn't really bother me at the time. And other than that, I only saw Catholics doing their, ministry service. They always seemed kind of weird with the outfits, and it was not cool at the time. And I was never interested in it really. But I was culturally conservative. My dad's a Catholic, and I always and that plus I know truth must be objective. I was kind of looking for it still, and yeah, that was my
how
path.
so even in your story, just right there, I'm just hearing of or the your story about this American economics guy
Hmm.
sharing his faith with you and using his he meets you, shares his faith with you, and he's using his business, his the door that God had opened for him to share his faith with you, which is already showing like how God uses business. As a businessman, it does not mean that you can't share the gospel or that you're in
Hmm.
a secular field, like the
Yes.
sacred secular split that people often think of. And I think one of the things that Protestantism did was it was saying, no, actually, work is a way that we can glorify God. Work
Hmm.
is this way that we can glorify God, and really brought back a very high view of what work is, and how we as Christians should look back to the garden and realize that God made us workers and stuff.
Hmm.
And would you say that's had any impact
Very
on you,
true.
just seeing your work, seeing that kind of vision of work?
Yeah. Yeah, actually, it was not long ago. Our pastor had a little piece of teaching about a biblical theology of work as well. So I kind of remembered that, and it was being said that work and the fact that we're exhausted from work, or we kind of tend to view it as something that's exhausting and maybe even negative, is something that came post the fall, but the work itself was being created way before. So man is made in the image of God as a worker because God is one himself, right? So God is working on the creation, and he wants to have us being part of that. And it's basically in the DNA of creation itself. So man is made as a working being. So yes, it is, or it used to be just glorious, and now it's still glorious, but also exhausting at times. So that is kind of that is the curse that came as an addition to it. But that doesn't mean, um, especially because it's such a big part of our life, our time that we spend throughout the week, right? So we ought to glorify God and ponder about Him, and share the gospel still wherever we can, even in a work situation. I think we're all called to do these things always. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, you bring up a good point there with thinking about how much of our time, for the average person who's an adult, providing for their family, how much time of the day, even or just providing for yourself, you're providing. How much time of the day are you putting into work? And for probably
Mm,
most people, it's half, more than half. And so, if that if you do not have a good vision of how work impacts your spiritual life, what your spiritual life looks like in work, then you're going to be deficient spiritually, and you're going to be suffering or starving spiritually in half or over half of your life. And there's an essay about this. There's a girl named Dorothy Sayers who wrote an essay about this. And she was talking about, kind of making that point of if we cannot show how, as in Christianity, we cannot show people how Christianity impacts the regular working man, then
mm,
how is Christianity going to, spread, or how is it going to really have an effect on people? And so, but her point was talking about just the importance of showing how Christianity impacts the working man. and we look at God as the original worker. You kind of mentioned that. I think just God is the original worker, and so it's in our DNA as image bearers of God. God creates things, and He says, "Look at my creation, rule over it." Like God's the ruler, we're ruling under Him, and so rule
Mm,
over it, order it well. Um, you know, make things out of what He's made. It's good to make things and to be creative and to image God in that way. We have a desire to do that, and we love watching other people create things. We love watching movies and reading books and enjoying what other people make out of creation. So yeah, I mean, it's a glorious thing to think about how God made a world that we can do so much in. And even
mm,
we can even leave this world. We can even go to planets, and we can even well, we can go to the moon and Mars potentially, but we can travel, we can explore. So God's made a universe for us to explore and to enjoy. And so yeah, it's really awesome to think about just the all the impact that or all the stuff that we can do in this world and just
mm.
enjoy.
Yeah, and even if the fall, let's say in the garden, wouldn't have happened, but the task still would have been to do something with it, like to turn it into something that you can actually rule over and that you can expand it. Because when people multiply, basically the necessity is a given that you need structure, right? So you would have had infrastructure, you would have had architects at some point for sure, like sewage. You need school, or at least some form of education, and all these things would have been there still, a bakery, a supermarket, if you will. And so in a sense, the people doing these things today, even though the world has fallen, they're still keeping the cultural mandate alive. So if you look at it from the standpoint that God still keeps this earth running, and He still wants it to run, He ordains it to run. Um, it's because there's still people that need saving. There's still people that need to be saved. So the world still keeps running, and there's people in it that have to provide for that. So and then Christians, I guess, should be at the forefront of being diligent workers, and advancing the kingdom, and making this fallen world more pleasant, if we can, in some ways, because there's still time, and there's still people that need saving.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, even scientists. We would have had scientists, most likely, and we could have had, people studying the secrets of the universe. We could have people really looking at this creation and digging deep into it. Those things exist after the fall, but um, there's other things that exist after the fall too. Now we have, doctors. Now we have pastors who are, seeking for souls who are sick, and you have evangelists and all these things that have that come from the fall. So there is some work that comes from being in a fallen world, but a lot of work would have existed before being in a fallen
Yeah.
world. And you think about, would we have all have lived in little huts or something? No, we probably would have progressed and built beautiful architecture that honored God, and that or we could those are things that we could have done, and I think would have been glorifying to God to do. And so the question is, if we could have done it then, if God is redeeming us, He's not redeemed creation yet, but creation still exists. And so are we going to wait till the new earth to begin living out what God is like? If we're being sanctified and restored
Mm,
to the image of God, as the Bible says, then wouldn't that image of God also include man as a worker who's working well?
mm.
So we should expect people to be improving in their sanctification in their work life. And so
Yes.
it's important for pastors, I think, to preach this and for us to talk about this.
Yeah. And it is a teacher, as like maybe one of the big teachers of your sanctification, of your personal Christian sanctification as well. I would say the main one is marriage, at least in my experience. I mean, you're being shaped and sanctified, and challenged, through marriage. You're being confronted with your own, faults. But that goes also for working. I mean, you have to be diligent. You have to be um on time. You can't be lazy. all these things that your flesh always drags you down, right? So that happens in work, and it's very common, right? So we're we're still in a battle with the flesh. I mean, it's not always easy, but it's a big teacher for sanctification, and it's a big part of your life. You know, time wise, we've talked about that. It's a big part of your time. So yeah, we ought to make the most of the time.
Mm. Could you tell me more about your business? Tell me more about what you do, what you make, just day to day
Yeah.
op, what it's like.
Yeah, sure. So we do everything by hand. The ground thing is beef tallow. We have one of the finest ones here in Switzerland. Obviously, I mean the first thing you probably think about is like beautiful cows, and they're out in the greenery and these things, and it does exist here. So um, yeah, and there's pretty strict oversight on these things. So I guess most of the animals in Switzerland are such a high quality because of the Swiss people really look after that, and there's even regulations for to keep them grass fed on a certain level. I mean, from the state, so you can't like raise cows as whatever you want. So you need to keep them in a certain condition, which is it makes sure that it's pretty high quality beef first and foremost, and then the byproduct, of course, is the beef, the tallow. Um, so we started out with a local butcher, and he basically gave us the tallow from their animals. We could just visit them like on the
For free.
on the farm. They ended up in the butchery, and then
Was
they
it for
made
free?
sausages. Sorry.
Was it for free? Like we just giving it to you for free, or was he?
No, it's like it wasn't that expensive, but it wasn't like totally, deodorized, and the finished it's like a white substance when it's done and ready to turn into cosmetics. So we turn it into cosmetics. Obviously, this is all skin moisturizing balms, basically. But that's not the case when you get it from the butcher. So you need to do a process called rendering. Um, but yeah, we already outsourced that one. So we kind of worked with we are now working with a finished deodorized tallow. It's basically like a block of white substance, which doesn't smell of animal or beef at all anymore. So you can it's perfect. It's perfect for cooking, for eating. It's super healthy. Um, I noticed in America there's this whole "Make America Healthy Again" movement a little bit with the Kennedy and all these things. So it plays into that as well. I think these people are big fans of beef tallow as well, and yeah, it's like it's super good for the skin because it's got all the vitamins, and the composition is like it's almost identical to the human fat on the skin anyway. So it's like it's being absorbed in an instant, and it's super soothing. Like I loved it when I tried it. Um, and the idea came about when my wife first brought it into the house, and she kind of had it for, leg moisturizing, skin moisturizing, whatever. And I ended up using it more than she did because I used to have these standard, Nivea products, whatever after shower. I always have dry skin in the winter. So I ended up using it more than she did, and it was empty in a
Mm.
heartbeat. And I was like, yeah, these things are kind of expensive, and let's figure out whether we can like do it ourselves or even better. Make some nice smells into it, and we like lavender or different things that you can find in our shop now. Yeah, we ended up making it in our kitchen, and then we moved to this room. It's not a very big one, but we have a storage, we have a kitchen, we have a production desk, and we have logistics and shipping. So yeah, that's what we do, and what I do mainly is the marketing for the whole thing. So I come a little bit from marketing and social media, and so I do the designs, I do the online, the marketing bits and things. So we do the Google ads, we do Meta ads, we do all these e-commerce standard things, I would say, and that's what I mostly work on. And yeah, for all the other pieces of the production, I do now have people freelancing with me. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about scaling a business. I want to talk about that. You started it in 2024, is that right?
Yep.
So tell me a
Yeah.
little bit about kind of you're in the early stages. What does it look like scaling a business? Any advice for scaling a business well? Any lessons? How have you done that? So could you just take me from that kind of start to now, the ways the business has changed, what changes have been for the good, what changes has not been for the good, or what lessons would you give?
Well, I would still say we're in the beginning stages, per se, but it did develop a little bit. So as I said, we started out in the kitchen basically. So we couldn't have possibly have produced the volume that we do now. So yeah, we do thousands of cans a month. We do. I mean, we did the production had to be scaled, and we had to figure out a way to just make more, because a single person needs to be able to make more so you can have a certain stock, right? So you just can't do everything on demand. um Otherwise you're selling stuff that you don't have in stock. So yeah, we did batches of, I would say 10, 20 in the beginning, and we had to figure out a process. I mean, sourcing out the rendering of the fat was a big deal in the beginning. It just had to be done. It wasn't possible. You would like take a pound, melt it down, and then you do that 5 times over, but you have to have it solidify every time. So that would, I mean, only the time calculation would be 9 to 13 hours going into like a few kilograms, and then you could make a few jars with it. Yeah, we had to find a way to have bigger volume at some point. It's a lot of research really, and you have to like create a vision, and maybe have a vision board even, um, and collect your ideas, to what you're how you want to basically optimize all these procedures, right? So that's the production part, and then obviously you need budget. We didn't have any credit, so it went kind of slowly and bit by bit. I was having a full-time job at the time as well, so I did it all on the side with my wife. Um, in the evenings, on the weekends, not on the Lord's Day, obviously, but like every spare minute we kind of put into that, and that had to change as well. So I had to, you know, figure out a way to, turn back my full time. I was employed full time at the time, 100%. So that's 42 and a half hours a week in Switzerland. Yeah, and then it's a lot of time management that had to be improved massively. I did have help from a dear brother from our church, almost from the very beginning. He's still with us today, as a freelancer, and he's still graduating. He's quite young in his early 20s, um, doing his, we call it Abitur. It's like the graduating high school still in Germany. He's still doing that, so he still works with me on the side with it. But yeah, he's a very faithful and very nice guy, and very diligent and very ambitious also. So yeah, I love having him around. He was a big help, and it really helps to have somebody also that you can just kind of ping pong ideas as well. If you're all by yourself, it can be hard. Even if you're on YouTube and researching all the stuff about how do I build a business and things, it's good to ping pong and, play ideas, play it by my wife, play it by him, talk with people about what your goals are, and yeah, go bit by bit. I'm talking for a long time, so maybe you can
Yeah.
ask more questions
Was
or
there
something.
ever a point where, as you're kind of growing, maybe you had a good marketing swing where
Mm,
you're getting a lot of orders in and you're like,
mm.
man, we got to step up our production. Did your production step up to meet demand, or did you kind of step up your production before the demand hit, kind of anticipating it? Like, tell me your
Mm.
mindset there.
As I come from marketing, my mindset is always to, pump up the sales, try to pump up the sales. And yeah, the Lord was very gracious from, I would say, January 25 up until now, and it didn't stop. There was a big shift after Christmas of 24. it was a fine season, but it was really turning into a business with a level of sales that we can really work with and make a basically a full-time living as well, and really and even invest capital back into the company. That's from January 25, I would say. I wouldn't say I did anything really. I didn't do much differently than I did the year before. But the ads on social media and the collaboration with some German influencers, which are also Christian. He's called Ketzer der Neuzeit. He's like it's like a heresy of the New Age. I think that would be the word. Heretic in the New Age.
Hmm.
That's his name. He's a Christian, though. See, that's just kind of the political claim that he's making is kind of not
Hmm.
a lefty kind of deal. So he's a heretic of the status quo, I would say. So he's a Christian. We do some ads with him, and that collaboration started in the beginning of 25 as well. And it kind of took off from there. So it's like we made more than quadruple the sales from then. And I wouldn't say it was my skills or a big like kind of champion of like a special ad that we did. It's just the ads kind of picked up speed, and we put more budget into it, and it's kind of it rolls naturally at some point. You get a grip on it, and obviously the Lord's hand in it. I would say I'm still very thankful that we can really drive this forward now. Yeah.
And so as you were kind of like building momentum there, did you kind of have to like really pick up speed with your production, or was your production already at a point where it could handle higher demands? Like, were you, kind of, has your production been enough to always, accompany the demand? And, you know, is there a way that you kind of thought through, we need to produce this much of the product per month in order to meet, we're anticipating this many demand, this much demand next
Yeah.
month?
Yeah, I'm not a big business plan kind of guy, so I didn't really I didn't really have that much stuff laid out. Like in that case, we do X. In that case, we do Y. It was more. It was more seeing the Lord at work, because the synchronicity of things was like the the new delivery of Swiss beef fat. That really we could like have. I think we ordered 10 times the amount. And we were able to order 10 times the amount of sheer substance from also January or February 25. So if that wouldn't have happened, I don't, we would have been helpless, I would say. So we had to kind of step up the production from that point on. And I had to really employ people for many more hours to get ahead again. But yeah, it was. I'm always kind of more behind than up front, I would say. But it's my style of approaching as well. I'm more the creative guy and the marketing and the sales guy, and not the hands-on kind of production roll up your sleeve kind of guy. So yeah, we had to step up the game there. But yeah, the Lord was gracious. He gifted us the new source of fat, and he gifted us many more things. We had to print more labels. These labels, right? So you put labels on the jars. Um, I didn't really know how the cosmetics products really do it. The kind of the materials, all these things. I had to have a phone call with somebody who just kind of taught me these things. I didn't even find it online really. So yeah, someone from this company kind of taught me the things. What's the differences between the foliage and all these things. So we had to have a new source there, because we were, cutting them by hand in the very beginning. I was sitting there with like a round kind of scissor thing, and I printed them on like a photographic paper, and kind of like, I didn't want it to look like self-made, handmade, but it kind of did in the beginning. So we had to step up that as well, and then Photoshop, and a lot of things had to be done and improved. But yeah, we kind of managed with the help of the Lord.
Was there ever a moment where, as the company's growing, you had a full-time job outside of that?
Mm.
It's kind of a startup that you had on the side. When you made that transition, did you already have enough kind of money flowing in to make it full-time, or was there kind of like a moment of faith where you kind of had to jump on less income, expecting it to grow?
Um, Thankfully not. we were able to really make a living off of this. Still, I would say summer of 25 now. It really picked up again in June because we are selling sunscreen. So we have a product called Sunblock. It's with zinc oxide, and yeah, we learned there's a lot of demand for it, and that was our summer. And from that point, I could have quit my job, but I still don't. Like, I still am employed there because I still I'm working for a Christian university, and I still want to help them. And it's kind of not easy to just kind of let them go as well, because even though I'm slowing down, I'm doing less and less. I still want to help them first, and I can't just like say goodbye because I need to kind of fade out my role there as well. So it's not like I'm able to quit and I can't wait for it. It's like I'm actually really happy with my Christian job as well. So I still work for them. I still help them, and but that's only 3 days a week and not the whole day. So I do a certain percentage there still. Yeah.
So you're kind of a your specialty is marketing. So tell me, kind of what went into your head as far as I'm going to build this company through your marketing. How did you build the company using your marketing skills?
Um, I would say I'm always a fan of lifestyle and imagery, and the brand itself. I mean, we do sell skincare, but in marketing, it's more of a different angle of thinking. So we more try to sell a culture. We sell a culture of values. I would say family values. For example, I give you an example for Valentine's Day. So we don't display couples in our ads on Valentine's that are just by themselves.
Mm.
In our Valentine's ad, we've had a couple with two children on the couch, like a happy kind of whole family moment, and then it says "Be my Tallow Valentine." So that was our ad last year. So we kind of try to develop a culture and that reflects our values, as well as something that people can easily identify with, and that is also fun and like brightens up their everyday, their whole approach to cosmetics. So this stuff is not only healthy. That's another angle, but we call it angles in marketing. So you could do the healthy angle, which we do. We do that as well, because it's got everything you need. Basically, your skin, it's got all the vitamins. It's going to be absorbed so easily, and it's easy to do a UGC kind of thing where people just tell about their product and how it like benefits their life. It even it's really amazing. I'm really convinced of it. First of all, like, it's really amazing. It heals like eczema and all these things. It helps people with tons of things. So it's more like it's a helper. It's like it's a product. This is a life improvement, basically. It really is. We get tons of feedback from people that didn't expect their life to their skin to be improving that much. So that's a kind of standard angle. Just highlight that. But I'm always a fan. So my main approach is to really sell a culture of fun, but also of discipline, of having conservative Christian values, basically, having family values, um, and strong imagery, which people can identify with, and see people that are rather role models and strong personalities, or see something that is, you know, designed well, and there's a certain, love that flows into the product and the design and the making of it. And everything should kind of reflect that. We're trying to work towards making something beautiful rather than making something that we would like, than just making something as cheap as possible, or you know what I mean.
Yeah, so you're kind of brand building. You're like building a brand with
Mm.
a certain value set. So like you're kind of building a brand with a certain vision of life, a certain ideals, family centered ideals. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yes. Yes, I would
Yeah.
say.
Yeah, that's awesome. Anything on the practical side of marketing as far as, have any, like, I put this many ads out, or I use these ad
Yeah.
revenue, or these ad, placements, you go, what sites do you use? Any
Yeah.
strategy there?
So, yeah, first of all, let me praise the Lord for putting us into a time as this, because really I do want to emphasize, and for all the listeners as well. So I really want to motivate you guys to if you want to, and if you have it in your heart, to just open your own shop, because to open your own shop, it used to be back in the days, you'd have to rent a store, basically have a window out, like just decorate your thing and then have walk-in customers. That time has passed, so that age is gone. So basically for zero, and then what have you, $35 a month, you could have a Shopify store for yourself, and or any other e-commerce platform for that matter. And it's never been as easy to have a product, design it wherever you are in the world, and basically get it to almost anybody in the world. Like the shipping systems are there, the apps are there, the website, the funnels, we call it funnels, to get your product until the checkout and then have a payment method. It's all there. It's not so hard to set it up. I didn't know anything about it, and it took me, like, I would say 7 to 10 months to really get into it, and I'm fascinated by it. And I would just in general say it's never been as easy to get into the world of products, because also God designed the whole marketplace, the whole capitalist world, let's say, which He designed. It's not man-made. It's like a tool that is given for man to advance himself and his community, and basically, to get dominion over the world as well. But there's only two ways to make money in this world, and one is to sell your time for profit, or for invoice people for your time that you spend for services, and the only other option to make any money in this world is goods. So I, as a musician, and back in the days, I used to work my whole life in services, and then now I switched to goods, and I'm really astonished by the potential it has and the scalability it has. So, but that's just some general remarks. So yeah, back to the question of marketing. Um, it's not as easy to handle Meta and the advertising platforms. It really takes a little while to get into it, but I would say that's a skill set that's very worth the time investing. The time that you invest into getting to know Meta and advertising platforms, or let's say Google Ads or others, that's really a skill that is worth your time to learn it, because it's so, you can do so many things with it in the end if you learn to spend your money. And nowadays everybody can just put a credit card in it, and you're basically almost good to go. Just register a little company, whatever. It's very easy to get started these days. So I would encourage especially young Christians to get into these things, just to learn about it a little bit and see if there's something for you there, because it makes you able to, whatever your idea is, of a product, or whatever you wanna bring to the world or sell it, just to implement it and make some marketing and make some sales with it. Um, you'd have to go through the channel of social media marketing, I would say. It's just the main way to that everything online works nowadays. So yeah, if you have some questions about the details, just go ahead and ask maybe. So I was doing some general remarks.
Yeah, yeah. Is there anything in the details that you think would be good for the listeners to know? If they're like, yeah, I want to do marketing. I've got a small business that's kind of like yours.
Yeah,
It's based in, home. I'm selling to different places and stuff.
yeah.
There's distribution or something.
I would say it's not hard to set up shipping and these things with Shopify. There's a lot of tutorials for that. That's just basic knowledge. It doesn't take a lot of time to set that up. But in the end, at first you'll be the one to walk to the post office wherever you live, and you're gonna give them the parcels to deliver it, bring it there yourself, and just send it out before you can employ people to do that for you. And the other thing is with the budgeting, right? So everybody thinks going into business, it takes a lot of capital up front, which is not necessarily the case. It takes a lot of time on your end, but with, I would say, a grand or two, you can already experiment with some things for a month or two, or if you have some capital, a little bit spare, a few hundred, maybe a few thousand, you can already start some things. And basically, when you found your Meta account, your Meta business account, they will limit you anyways. So they won't trust you up front. If your PayPal, your Meta, they'll give you limits anyway. So it's not like you can spend on the third day, you can spend $1,000 a day or so. No, they'll limit you to a few dozen dollars a day. So I think about 40 something will be your starting limit a day. You can't spend more than that. So they'll see how you do. They'll check on you. They see, because they have all the numbers anyway, and they have to because of the algorithm. I mean, they monitor your business, right? So there's no way around it. So they'll see how you do, and they'll grant you more and more budget that you're able to spend on their platform. So you can't, just don't be shy. Just go ahead and look into it, and make yourself an account, and just start putting some messages out about your product, about your service, maybe even that you want to sell. But that includes obviously first website building and these things. But I mean, nowadays it has never been easier. There's so many templates. There's so many things in there. And even if somebody else can do it for you, then they just set that up once, and it'll serve you maybe for months and years, right?
Mm. Yeah, I want to go back real quick to you're talking about the capitalistic system that God has created. I want to add something to that. We think about the basis. I think about the basis of capitalism. You have private property. You have that's a big thing as biblical Christians, is that I cannot steal from you. It's written in the 10 Commandments. Like, theft it's a sin. It's a breaking of one of the 10 Commandments. And that establishes the principle of private property. That's something that, can I get that from just being like, is it wrong to steal your property outside of a Christian worldview? I mean, it might hurt you. Why is hurting you wrong? Why is taking
Mm,
your stuff wrong? You know?
mm,
Well, it's wrong because it hurts. Well, why is hurting somebody wrong? Or why is making someone sad wrong? Or why is making someone suffer wrong? I mean, you're just stardust. I'm just stardust. But it's private property is baked into the law of God with thou shalt not steal. Private property is one of the foundations of capitalism, is that you have rights. The government should enforce private property. And capitalism, what it looks like if it's enforcing private property, is it's exchange of value. So you have value, I have value. And ideally, we take God's creation and we can put two and two together and create more value. Now I've created, more value. And so what do you think about this? And so there's subjective, like, I value your thing better than you value my thing. Well, there comes commerce. And now we can trade and stuff. But this is a system that God has created, because God has created a world where your stuff is not my stuff and my stuff is not your stuff. And actually we're coveting if I'm sinfully wanting what's yours and I'm not content with what I have. And so, it doesn't mean that we can't
right.
desire things, but I
Mm,
certainly can't steal. I certainly can't take from somebody else. And so that's clearly in the world that God made. Now, what we would
yes.
definitely reject is a selfish capitalism that happens after the fall, which is where, I'm going to rip you off. I'm going to market in order and maybe you can talk about this more, but I'm going to market in order to trick you into wanting my product. But I'm really
Mm,
overselling my product, or, you know,
mm,
charging people too much for things, or uh, providing people with too little of a wage because you can get away
mm,
with it because you have a monopoly. And
mm,
in a pre-fall world, would that have ever happened? No, it wouldn't have. We wouldn't have seen
mm,
people ripping other people off. We would have seen people who not only have private property baked into our understanding of the world, but we also have love and justice baked into our understanding of the world. So I'm going to treat you with love. I'm going to treat you with justice. And so
mm.
Just because we don't have people who are always moral doesn't mean you throw out the system that God has made where we respect private property.
Yeah.
What you have to do is you have to build a culture that does love their neighbor. What culture teaches to love your neighbor? Well, the Christian culture does. This is what Christianity is built on. It's this the sacrifice of Christ, the creation of the triune God, and ultimately his law that we're being saved from our transgressions against the law. The law is summarized as loving God, loving your neighbor. We fail to do that. Christ is our savior if we trust and we believe in him, but he just he's conforming us again to the likeness of Christ to obey his law and to be saved by grace, but out of grace to overflow in obedience. And so Christian culture creates people who they seek for justice, they want to walk humbly with God, and they want to honor their neighbor. And so
Yeah.
is the solution to the problems of our world, let's get rid of private property the way God has made things?
Mm,
Or is the solution, we are creating immoral people with our culture?
mm,
We need to return to cultural values because it's not just a given that people are born and they go, private property exists. I ought to love my neighbor. Boom, boom, boom.
mm.
Because that's not
Yeah.
existed across every culture ever. People don't
Yeah.
realize how much those things come from Western civilization, founded
Mm.
from Christian values, a Christian mindset. It's often from that.
Mhm. Yes, definitely. So I'm very familiar with these libertarian thoughts. I was digging a lot into that before I became a Christian, even. And the thing is with just trade itself, if you look at it and if you turn it into a philosophy, just like economism, like let's say classic liberalism or economics that limits the state as much as it can and has free trade as much as it can, it still doesn't answer certain moral questions. So the Christian impulse, that the Christian impact on all of this is of course the law. Is of course the love that flows from these big commandments. Love God and love your neighbor as thyself. And then if these two can come together, I think that's the most potent mechanism to overcome certain things in this fallen world, and that's a very powerful tool in our hands to turn capitalism and all the possibilities it gives us into a moral thing that even transports values, and that's I mean, there's certain mechanisms even built into it that you shouldn't covet, and you obviously shouldn't steal. Um, and once you do these things, you erode the system itself, so it doesn't serve you any longer. And in the end, you suffer yourself. So there's certain mechanisms, um, and you see that wherever socialism is implemented, they kind of disregard all these God-given mechanisms of free trade, of capitalism, and everybody in the end ends up suffering, except the very few sinners that implemented it in the first place, because they're the beneficiaries, and then everybody else suffers. So the state does tend to turn into this kind of monster that wants to monopolize all of that and kind of extract all the wealth from society, and they really shouldn't do that. And the peoples of that kind of give these states the legitimacy, they should have a moral codex as a whole, and of course it should be Christian, because only the Christian worldview would place these very strict moral implications on all the state actors as well, because they need to be kept from implementing these socialist policies, basically, and protect private
Mm,
property for sure.
yeah.
And maybe one thing to add as well, it's a good thing for Christians to possess capital. It's a good thing for Christians to be able to move in this world and to be um, not only provide for their families, but much more. Provide for their church, give to the church, provide for formats as this. We need money to buy these cameras. We need money to you need certain liquid assets to provide for a lot of things that would advance the kingdom and advance a lot of things in the life of a Christian as well. And we are called to these things, and money or at least capital, can be used to these ends very quickly. And it more depends on the moral code that's behind it, and that should be that of a faithful Christian.
Yeah, and just to, add another thing to that too, Romans 13 talks about the government's role to wield the sword. And so another aspect of capitalism, trade in a Christian worldview in a fallen world, another aspect of capitalism in a fallen world is you have the government enforcing certain crimes, enforcing punishment against certain crimes. And so there's certain things that we don't just say, oh, well, it's free distribution. I mean, it's your private property. You get to, no, there's certain things that shouldn't be done. There's certain things that shouldn't be produced. Rip people who rip people off and who make money off of these things. Sometimes it's the government's role to crack the whip and to say, no, you don't do
Hmm.
that. So we also
Yeah.
don't want to go to the other end where we say the government looks at every sin and makes it a crime. But
Right. There's a difference there. Right.
yeah,
Not every sin is a crime
yeah.
that's in the dominion of the government to be punished. Right.
Yeah, exactly. And some are in the dominion of the home, some are in the dominion of the church to be punished with earthly temporary things, but um ultimately they're all in an eternal realm to be they all are something that we will have to give an account for to God. But the government does have a role in things in the market. And so we also would look and say, no, we don't just only believe in a free market where the government doesn't have any role in the market. And I would say we also want to look at that as Christians and say the government can also enforce loving your neighbor in certain ways of, no, you shouldn't do these things that hate your neighbor. You shouldn't do these things. Now, you just like you can't steal their property, we're also going to enforce other things like, no, you can't sell this thing because this thing is wicked and God hates this and this will kill society. And there's obvious things there that we can go into. But yeah, just another thing to think about. The government does have a role in this. We're not just saying just a free market, whatever, but the government also in a fallen world in particular, you have the government saying, no, these things can't be enforced, but also a culture along with that that's Christian. You need things like that. So, it's not just Christian culture that makes good trade, but also a government that trains people. I think culture elects governments in our day in a lot of countries, and so culture in a lot of ways is something that produces government, and government also tutors culture. And so it's both and. You
Hmm.
mentioned something about improving or helping church community, something along those lines. Um, could you dive into that and how your business been able to do that?
Yeah. Well, thankfully, yes. So I always, and I even, my prayers went into the direction of I want to be able to help with my goods as well. So um, I would like I mean it's a very nice role and a very blessed role to be able to be a provider not only for the family but also for the church as well. And I mean I guess the more the better. Um, but yes, we've been blessed with that, and we are contributing to our church, which is not a big one. We are 20 something people, and we have the with the kids about 40 people. Um, but yes, we're not a very old one. We are a church that's been founded like 5 years ago. Little 1689 Baptist Reformed church in the south of Germany, in the town of Weil am Rhein. And yeah, so yes, we've been able to help the church. I'm very thankful for that, but I'm also very thankful to include the brethren. So the only people that work in my company at the moment are just people from my church or the church that we went to before, which is on the Swiss side of the border. So yeah, there's few ways that you can help. Obviously by giving your tenth, giving your money to the church, to invest into the kingdom in that way, but also on top of that, help with just with goods, that help with inviting people to your place, making space, having a bigger space to rent out, to have more hospitality, um, bringing over people to sleep at your place, being able to afford an extra room with an extra bed for a family to crash, being able to, yeah, well, here, just employ people, helping them with even paying them up front or whatever their needs are, right? So it just gives you a range of flexibility, which can all be used for blessing the people in your church, and advancing the kingdom in that way. For example,
Mm.
we've been able to buy some cameras for evangelism. We are now taking like GoPros, trying to, well, at least that's kind of a new project we're doing. So I just was able to, buy some technology just for evangelism now. So some brethren have the idea. So let's set up something, maybe a YouTube channel, maybe film some stuff, and maybe just put it online somehow. Yeah, well, we need equipment, right? So yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
blessed to provide that, for example, and things like that. So all thanks to the company, all thanks to free trade and these market mechanisms, and yeah, the grace of God.
And could you tell me, should being a Christian, being in a local church, should that even affect your hiring practices?
I guess it should. It depends on really what your views are, what the company is really for. And for me, the company is for not the sake of itself or growing into the biggest version of itself. It's not a it's not an end in itself. Like, it's not the purpose of the company. It's not an end in itself. It's not like to be the biggest dominating tallow company, even though it might be substantially bigger one day. But that's not the end in itself, I would say, for me, at least at the moment, or for us as a family. It should first and foremost serve the kingdom, and by that employ first and foremost Christians that even that we know, or that need help, or that need a place to work, or and then second of all, it should support the family, and it should support the church, and we'll see where God takes it from there. It's not my ambition is not to rule over whatever God wants to do with it. I'm trying to be faithful in the process where we are now. Be faithful in advertising. Be faithful in hiring. Be faithful in, yes, growing it, but as I would say, a healthy pace, and not kind of speculate with too big a sums of money. And that all plays into it. I don't want to turn greedy somehow. And I talked with my pastors about these things. So when you go into making more money than you used to, you are having different responsibilities with it. So Paul says it. I learned to be poor and I learned to be rich, and I had to learn to deal with it both ways. Like, you need to learn to deal with having very little or having almost nothing but your clothes and your food. Maybe you are in a situation like that in your life at some point. Maybe even in jail. And there are brothers and sisters who are in, at this moment that we speak, they are in jail. That's obviously very challenging. And then it also can be very challenging, very tempting to have a lot of goods. Um, Not that we are now super rich, but we do have substantially more than 2 years ago, I would say. So you need to really have to grow into learning how to deal with these things spiritually as well.
Mm.
To be faithful and to not think too highly of yourself. But I think even if you do, the Lord will find ways to humble you, and to show you that He's the provider still. You can't fall, entertain thoughts that are any other than that. Or at least I guess you shouldn't. Yeah, you need to stay focused on your work, because the work in itself is a value in the Christian life anyway. So as I said, it was there before the fall. It's your duty on this earth anyway, and you need to be faithful in that. And if the business grows and you take the next step, that's fine.
Mm.
But it all needs to be in a healthy pace, I guess.
Yeah. I think it's also awesome that, you and your wife are working on this together and that you're bringing your family into this. I mean, that's how
Mm.
work often has been throughout history. It's been not separating the family, like husband says, I'm going to leave for the most of the day and, comes back home later. And, he's like, the wife is over the education, he should be he should be involved in that too, to some degree, but, it used to be where husband and wife and family were an economic unit together and in different times. I think it's really neat how you're doing that.
And even the wives in, is it in is in Proverbs, uh, th- uh,
41.
31, right? So it's
Yeah,
like the
Proverbs 30.
wife is the yeah,
Yeah.
the wife is selling, right? She's doing
Yeah.
trade. She's doing trade in the streets. It's not she's like inactive in the marketplace.
Mm.
She's diligent. She's a working woman, and of course we have small children right now, thank God, and my wife works on that most of her time. But yes, she's able to not have a job outside of the home or in our own company, and she's able to not do that. So we're very thankful for that situation. Um, it could be a motivator for some young Christian guys to get your wife at least out of the corporate world if she must be there. So it's more like to not serve another man's house and
Mm.
their ends too much as more of to and that's the beauty of being self-employed and doing your own thing as well. It gives you the chance to integrate your family, your people, your church into something that's uniquely within the family, or at least in the Christian family. So that's a big blessing in itself as well.
And she's not employed with you, but she does some of the work with you and she'll kinda help you. Is that how it works?
Yeah, less of now. She has two babies now since we started. Yeah, she did a lot of stuff in the beginning. As I said, we did it from home, so she's kind of shoving this stuff back and forth, and she would be in the kitchen also melting the fat and things. So yeah, in the beginning stages, she did a lot of tasks as well. Yeah, and
Awesome.
yeah, I mean the perspective. We do have two sons, so the perspective would be that I can cultivate something at least for the next 10, 20 years that my sons would also grow into. So that would
Mm.
be a very old and traditional way to think about a business as well. It's more like a family entrepreneurship. It's like it's a family unit that works on something and that you can integrate your children into and teach them things, right?
Mm. Yeah, building businesses could be a way that you give inheritance to your children. Proverbs
Right.
13 talks about, I believe it's the righteous man leaves an inheritance for his children. Um, and so, yeah, it's just, this is a biblical mindset to have is how do I improve, not just love the neighbors that are alive right now, but, the younger ones, but even maybe their children's children. So, kind of as we wrap up here, if you could put kind of the aspiration for Swiss based into a sentence or just kind of an idea, what's your aspiration business?
um, the aspiration is to be um, a faithful business that would stand the test of time rather than being a short-minded trend on social media. Even though we use social media, but we do want to do quality products that people fall in love with and that really benefit their lives. And I found that in beef tallow, which is a thing that God provides. And we don't do any recipe or secret thing. We basically do all natural products, which we do recipes with, and we mix them together, and we kind of create these products that we ourselves like and our customers like, and yeah, we do want to create something that people fall in love with long term, rather than something that's just a short trend on the internet or something, and a way to make money for ourselves just like that, and sell it at some point. Is It's a little bit of a different approach. It's more like a pouring your heart and your love into something that you grow as a family, and we see where the Lord takes it.
Mm. What are the biggest pieces of advice that you would give to any listeners who are listening to this? And if someone's listening to this and they're like, I want to start my own business someday, or they're in the midst of that. Um, I know it wasn't too long ago for you, but what advice would you give to yourself starting your business, or what advice would you give to a young person who's wanting to start a business?
I mean, I myself did listen to a lot of business advice from, I guess, wise guys in the world and also Christian people on the internet. Um, I would say a big thing for me has been prioritizing. Um, you need to you need to put the business and whatever you're doing, even in your entrepreneurship, in the right place in your life. So you need to, even every morning with your Bible and your faith, you need to get your priorities straight for your whole life, and the business is just a part of it. So as a family man, your main business is still raising your kids and your family. I mean, your wife and your family is still your number one task. And even though starting a business can consume a lot of time, you still have to make room for that and have to prioritize it, and not turn the business into an idol or something of that sort. It's not an end in itself. It's something that should serve as a tool. Yeah, for the customers, for your life, for your family and your church, but it shouldn't turn into something that is overwhelmingly dominating your mind, your life, and especially not your spiritual life. And it's very tempting to do that at some point. But that goes for the Christian. That's the advice for the Christian man, I guess.
Awesome. Well, any final exhortations? I really appreciate you talking, Gregor, and your
Yeah.
thoughts. Is there any final exhortations for the listener? If we have people listening to this, and what would you want to leave them with?
Yeah. Well, the final sentence could be something along the lines of "Be based, be blessed," because that's our motto. It's called the
There you
company
go.
is Swiss based. Be based, be blessed. I kind of want to end on that statement, maybe, but yeah, I really appreciated the time with you, Luke, and all the best and many blessings to the United States, of course. We live in crazy, but also in exciting times, I would say.
Mm,
And yeah, I'm very fortunate to know people like you, and to know people like our common friend that introduced us. And yeah, I'm very much looking forward to doing something like that again, maybe in the future. Or
yeah.
wishing you all the best for the podcast.
Awesome. Sounds good. Yeah. Hopefully, people, if we have people listen to this, they come away and they say, man, what a time to be alive and to do things for the kingdom of God. I think every time in the world has been a time to do that. Even if you're staring up at the biggest dragons and you're like, how are we going to slay these dragons? It's another time to
Mm,
say, wow, what a time to serve the Lord and what a time
right.
to do these things. And
Yes.
we have a lot of access for, we have lots of ways now to share the gospel and to get the gospel out and to raise capital for missions and evangelism and spreading the kingdom of God. And so how can we waste that? So I
Amen.
love the
Amen to
invitation.
that.
Yeah, be
Cool.
based, be
Be
blessed,
blessed.
and God bless America, God bless Switzerland, and use them for His glory. All right, well, thank you so much, and yeah, the
Thank you.
gospel in the grind. We'll hope you'll listen more, and we hope you'll take from this just a passion for the kingdom of God and how it can impact the workplace. Thank you.